Hi, Taylor T. Carlson here, and we're continuing our coverage of movies on 4K. And an installment of one of my favorite film series has finally hit the 4K format courtesy of Vinegar Syndrome. This is Death Wish 2. This was the second of 5 Death Wish movies that were made starring Charles Bronson. There was also a reboot of the franchise a few years ago that starred Bruce Willis. It gets a little complicated legally with the Death Wish movies. You're probably wondering why 2 came out before the original one. The original movie was released by Paramount Pictures and produced by Dino De Laurentiis, who was one of the biggest producers of his day. But the Death Wish concept was later sold off, and the sequels were done by Cannon Films, a company that was owned by Menahem Golan and Joran Globus. I hope I'm pronouncing those names right. Who were infamous for their company doing a lot of low-budget exploitative productions, the Death Wish sequels being some of their highest-grossing movies. And Death Wish 2, unlike the original Death Wish, is actually based on an original screenplay, whereas the original film was based on a novel. There was a sequel novel called Death Sentence, which got its own film adaptation that's really nothing like the novel in question, but the filmmakers figured that their adaptation here would be a better story for film. If you ask me, they were right. We'll unbox this release, and I will share my opinions about the movie, the supplement package, the picture quality, and more. Great close-up there of Charles Bronson as Paul Kersey, quite possibly my favorite role he ever played. There's our spine text. Back cover describes the film. We got a list of features, legalese, and so forth. Now, I want to point out that the 4K of this does include the uncensored cut of the movie. There's a censored R-rated cut, which is the one that's mostly been released on home video, but this is the fully uncut release. The R-rated version mainly makes cuts to a rape scene early in the film. I'm not going to go into too many details here, but you can go online and pretty much get an idea of what all that means. Now, like a lot of boutique labels, this actually has reversible art, so let's see what we get on the other side here. Okay, here's our reversible art. Again, got a nice close-up of Charles Bronson there, so we'll go ahead and put this in the case. There's our reversed alternate art. Back cover's pretty much the same. Inside, we have our 2 discs. We have the film itself on a 4K disc, and then we have a Blu-ray disc that has 2 cuts of the movie plus some new bonus features. I'll get into those a little later. In the original Death Wish, architect Paul Kersey was living in New York City, and his wife and daughter were attacked by muggers. Unfortunately, his wife did not survive the attack, and his daughter was pretty much reduced to a comatose state. Several years have passed, and by this point, Paul Kersey has moved on with his life. He's moved out to Los Angeles, and he's dating a beautiful woman who works for one of the radio stations. His daughter is in a care facility because hopefully they can nurse her back to health after the debilitating experience she had in the first film. Unfortunately, it seems like trouble follows Paul Kersey wherever he goes. It's not long before his wallet is stolen by a group of punks, and when he accosts the one that took his wallet, they later find his home address, come in, rape and murder his housekeeper, and then kidnap his daughter. She later, unfortunately, passes away after jumping out of a window trying to get away from the killers. When this happens, of course, Mr. Kersey doesn't take it too lightly. He gets a low-rent apartment in a not-so-nice part of the city and puts into motion a plan to hunt down and kill those who kidnapped and raped and ultimately led to the death of his daughter. The Death Wish movies are not exactly high art. I mean, if you go online, a lot of these don't really get the best reviews. Death Wish 2 was infamously given 0 stars by legendary film critic Roger Ebert, who had actually written a pretty positive review for the first movie. Personally, I think of all the sequels, this is the best one. I mean, I'm half tempted to say I might even prefer this movie over the first one, because the first one has a lot of exposition before you get to the actual killings and revenge and Paul Kersey going out and doing what he does best. I mean, here he's already got some experience, and this one also throws a lot of very colorful and interesting characters your way. One of the main thugs in the movie is even portrayed by a young and relatively then unknown Lawrence Fishburne, the man who would later play Morpheus in the Matrix movies, sporting a pair of really bad pink sunglasses. Also returning from the first movie is Vincent Gardenia as Ochoa, the police inspector in New York City from the first movie, who comes out to Los Angeles to investigate what's going on and if Paul Kersey has truly taken up his vigilante ways once again. There are some very violent, very disturbing sequences in this movie. It's certainly not for the faint of heart, and again, like I said, it's presented here in an unrated cut. Even the R-rated version of this that's censored is actually pretty brutal. But, if you want to see ridiculous, over-the-top, street trash characters getting their comeuppance at the wrong end of a gun, you really can't do better than the Death Wish movies. And this may honestly be my favorite out of the 5. Personally, I thought the third movie was a little too over-the-top and ridiculous. And then there were sequels after that just never quite lived up to their potential. 5 movies in total that were starring Charles Bronson in the role of Paul Kersey. So if you're watching this video, you're probably already a fan of the movies, because if you're not a fan, you probably wouldn't be curious as to see how the disc measures up. So how does a low-budget exploitative film like Death Wish 2 fare on the 4K format? I expected maybe a slight upgrade from earlier releases. I mean, after all, it was made by a low-budget studio that specialized in exploitative pictures. Boy, was I wrong. This is an amazing-looking 4K release. Clearly, they really went back to basics, cleaned this up very nice, but all the natural film grain and detail is intact. The level of detail in this is very strong. Got a nice range of colors, especially when you see some of the colorful costumes some of those thugs wear. Something like that is very nice. I'm not going to go and describe each and every thing here, but there are a handful of shots that are a little softer and maybe some light grain spiking. The opening credits sequence actually looks a little rough and dirty, but that's not uncommon when you consider how opticals and such were inserted into older films. So a lot of times with movies, after you get past the opening credits sequence, the picture quality picks up considerably, and that's certainly the case here. Now, like I said before, the 4K disc includes the movie. The included Blu-ray disc actually has the special features on it. As far as special features go, the Blu-ray disc also includes that uncut version of the movie, but it also has an edited for TV version of the movie that has about 5 minutes worth of content that was cut out of the theatrical version. So that's a pretty cool rediscovery right there. And then you get several brand new pieces that were recorded by people who worked on the film or were involved in the film in some way. And the stuff they have to say is actually very interesting. I have to say, I was very surprised with this disc and the effort Vinegar Syndrome put into it. The picture quality is amazing. They recorded brand new bonus features. I mean, like I showed you earlier, you've even got the reversible cover art, which is very nice. Probably the only complaint I have is that they did not include a copy of the soundtrack CD. And to me, that's a big deal because Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin fame actually did the music for this movie. And the soundtrack, of course, has been out of print for years. That would have been nice, but I'm sure there would have been a ton of legal red tape involved, so can't really complain too much. For fans of the movie, this is the definitive version, and I really hope Vinegar Syndrome gets to release eventual 4K discs of the other Death Wish movies. Are you a fan of the Death Wish films, and where does Death Wish 2 fall under your radar? Comment down below and let me know what you think. Also, remember to subscribe to this channel for more content because I'm always posting new videos, and give this one a like if you found it helpful. I'm Taylor T. Carlson. See you next time.